Hey everybody, DJ Lou here, and up next a two-part video I hope you're going to enjoy. I'm going to break down both my ceremony rig and my reception rig, and everything from power to equipment, what pieces I've used, DIY that I've incorporated into this, to basically enable me as a solo DJ to do what I do for each of my events. So let's get to this. All right, so a lot of thought and process goes into every piece of equipment that I buy, everything that I set up. I'm always trying to reduce my time for setup, trying to lighten the load. Sometimes that works in my advantage, sometimes it doesn't. I've interchanged things like having a controller with a single coffin. I've broken things down into smaller pieces. And ultimately, I'm always trying to think of a couple different things. Thinking modular, so this way I can always interchange pieces where necessary. So I'm always thinking, if my mixer dies, can I swap another piece out? Of course, if my laptop dies, bring in a second laptop. But I'm always just trying to be, one or two steps ahead. If something breaks, if something malfunctions, something freaks out, have some type of plan B and sometimes even a plan C to kind of work around that. So each one of these pieces that I've bought represents both quality, cost, because I am not rich. I can't afford every single piece of most expensive equipment that's out there. But also, I don't want to spend a lot of time setting up, breaking down. I don't want to make it overly complex. But some people will say that my setup is complex, and yes, there are definitely people out there who have much simpler setups, and definitely people that have even more complex setups. And I think I found this kind of happy medium. And I pack all this inside my 2011 Town & Country. I don't have to even roll down my middle row of seats. So all this can be very compact, gets me in and out of an event pretty quick. In general, I can do a ceremony setup in sometimes as little as 10 minutes as long as I have everything ready to go. My reception rig, sometimes I can get around 23 to 30 minutes depending if I'm having to do anything special with that. Everything that I do, I try to make sure that it makes sense, that it's cost effective, and that it gets me from point A to point B and hopefully lasts me for a good long time. So without further ado, I'm going to roll my cart out here. I'm going to break down each piece that I use, where a backup solution may work into play if something happens with it, and let's get to this. Now, what you just saw me roll out is the entirety of my ceremony and reception systems. Now, my typical setup doesn't include lights. Most of my clients don't prefer lights. It's an interesting phenomenon that I've run into as part of my niche. But this is it. So I'm going to roll this off to the side and start breaking down each piece. I'm going to go over everything in detail. All right, we're going to start off our setup just like I would at any venue. I'm going to actually start with my reception rig first. And part of the reason is I use my cart to move things along for my ceremony as well. So I have to move things off of that first anyways. Plus, once I get done my ceremony, naturally there's always cocktail hour after. So everything already has to be set up and working. So reception setup first. All right, the first thing we're going to talk about is this Odyssey folding stand. I've actually used both the black label version of this and also the standard version. It's been solid. What can I say? There are a couple shortcomings of this. First off, the height is just a tad too high. I wish this was about 2 to 3 inches shorter. So it makes my arms have to come up a little bit more for my equipment. But it's a trade-off. This is a relatively inexpensive piece of equipment, especially compared to once you get into custom solutions, those can run into the thousands or many thousands of dollars. So for pound, price-wise, utility-wise, ruggedness, it's really hard to beat this. All right, so these Odyssey stands do have this shelf that folds down and locks in, gives a little bit more rigidity on the sides. I also initially built a pass-through hole for my cables to run down. That being said, I decided to do something a little different for 2019, and so far it's worked for the 2 gigs that I've done this in. I now just leave this up, and the weight of my equipment, both pushing against the sides and on the top, actually still leaves this very rigid. So I was initially concerned that it might bang around a bit, bow in, collapse, but that has not been the case. So this allows me to do the next thing that I do. All right, so you may have noticed when I initially rolled this rig in, I had 2 additional pieces on top, and that is my ceremony setup. And they're pretty much identical. I wanted to keep everything interchangeable so that way if I need to swap things out, it's easily doable. Now in my mic box, I have two receivers. Now I don't have an antenna splitter on this, but I can easily just do two antenna relocation pieces that come with Sennheiser itself. In addition, I have this custom panel made by NLFX, has some custom writing on it, including my favorite 1.21 gigawatts of electricity to power out of this.
1.21 gigawatts!
Now you might hear me say NLFX quite a bit because every one of my custom cables, some of these panels, they're all made by them. So shout out to Ben Stowe and others. So I just simply, now I do have this PowerCon cable instead of your standard IAM type cable. And part of that is just to kind of make sure everything locks in nicely. It just gives a little bit of sense of safety and satisfaction in this. So I just simply route this down to this bottom panel. Now on the bottom, we do have my UI16, and I've talked extensively about this. I'll have a link in the video below for that. It's just been an amazing piece of kit. If I could say anything of my setup, this is probably the most singular piece that enables me as a solo DJ to do what I do. And I'm going to get a little bit further into that later in the video of how with my iPad I can control so many different aspects of things, from mic mixing, my top, what I call my top layer, where my regular controller or Rain 62 resides. I can control all that. I can record every event, and I do. Every event I've ever done has been recorded. I can play back on this as well, so I can not only play as a standby just in case if I'm not behind it, but if something goes wrong, if my mixer dies or something like that, I already have a song queued up for this. I simply press a button. That's it. Things are playing while I'm troubleshooting everything, swapping everything out. The entertainment doesn't stop at that point. In addition, you'll see this one cable up here. This is my aux bank up here. This feeds down to my Sennheiser IAM 300. Now, if the UI16 is the single best piece of equipment I have in my whole setup, the IAM may just be the second best. This gives me great versatility in placing speakers wherever I need to. I've had this in my reception rig for quite a while. I've added one for my ceremony rig as well. I've done an antenna relocation on this as well. Just keep everything nice, clean, neat, and whatnot. And below all this is a trip light PDU. Now, there's nothing really too special about this. It does have a covered power switch in it, but this doesn't have conditioning or anything, because when I hook this up to power, I have that all managed by my UPS. All right, so what I just threw into the side is my UPS. This is the CyberPower model that I have. I also have my APC model as well, and I go extensively into the reasonings why I use the UPS, both for ceremony and receptions. So I'll have the video and blog post below for that as well. Now, I do have this mounted backwards in here. And part of the reason is if I'm going to keep it close in here, I'm going to take advantage of being able to split off my power between my speakers. So this way, if I'm truly concerned about power outages or anything like that, and I do experience one, I can have one speaker that is purely on surge protection and noise protection and all that, and that will shut off in the case of a power outage. Now, that gives me the advantage of not using as much battery in that type of scenario. Now, in many other cases, I'll just throw this near a power outlet and run a cable all the way over to that, but it gives me some flexibility and choice on where I want to place this. So at this point, I can actually split off two different directions. I can set up a speaker right away and actually start doing sound check and listening to stuff while I'm doing the remainder of my sound. Sometimes I get lazy on that and I'll just start assembling my top layer, but let's assemble at least one of the speakers out here and start doing a sound check on that. All right, I have this handy Odyssey laptop case I've had for quite a while. It's not perfect, but it's actually done really well over the years. Has a magnetic clasp to kind of keep this together. Has individual pockets for my laptop in the back. Sometimes I'll put my spare laptop up here at front. Has a little pocket here on the side. Inside, We have nice compartments. I keep my headphones in one side, my iPad in another, hard drives, and then miscellaneous stuff as well. There's also some clear areas in here to kind of just visually keep things together. There's also this side pocket as well. I used to keep a laptop in here before, but made sometimes for it to flop out. This just wasn't made to carry it. But this has been a really rugged bag that has served me well over the years. And the reason I'm going in here is for my USB drives. Now the reason I brought this out is for my USB drives. I've got 3 in here. One's my recording drive, and it just happens to have red writing on it, so perfect for that. Then I have 2 identically cloned drives that has all my music for the night, has all my emergency stuff, some mixes that I've made over the years. And I keep this on here, so this is what I queue up on the Soundcraft when needed for ceremony. It would be to play the entirety of that. For reception is to play for backup solutions. All right, so my speakers are set up, and if you see my UI 16 video, you know I control everything with my iPad mini. You can also use a phone, you can use Android. It's all browser based. I can use my laptop. It does not matter, everything can be controlled by that. And you know, I do use this for ceremony as well, but for this rig, now I can start playing some music just to make sure everything is working as expected. I can control everything wherever needed. I'll get into a little bit more detail when I start talking about my speakers I put out remotely for a cocktail for dinner. But now I'm sound checked, everything's good, now I can start assembling my top layer. All right, this is my Gator case for my NS7 III. It's actually a case for the NS7 II, but it still fits the same. With minus, I take out the display panel. On the NS7 III, unfortunately, you just can't see it. Fits, but makes no sense keeping it in. I do have a customization on this. I have drilled a hole to pass through cables. Now, you might wonder, why would I do that with a top of a case? But I actually use this as a tabletop for this folding stand. I just learned, I kept the rubber feet on this, and they fit nicely onto this, and it just adds a nice even look. I don't have to worry about putting this top anywhere in my car when I have to you know, put things away, and it just keeps things nice and simple. Now, I'm not going to lie, this is heavy. It's 75 pounds in total. And there's no handles on the front and back, so it makes for a little bit awkward to pick up, but I've learned to live with it over the years. I love moving platters, and it's just a little bit of a trade-off for what I need. Now, occasionally I'll put this on chairs just so I don't have to squat and lift this up as much, but it's just something I manage. All right, so this is all about perspective. I try to keep everything as nice and neat, fewest amount of cables as possible. So what we have in here, we have a Belkin power strip. I actually have the same strip in my my Rain 62 mixer case as well. I have a power brick for my iPad. I have a very short throw cable that goes in here for the NS7 III itself. And this is the power run for my Apple Power Brick. Now, without tearing this all apart, I do have that Power Dock USB-C 3-port hub that's beneath this mixer, and I'm just using this power cord for that. Now, from the USB-C hub, I do have this substantial connector for it. I might eventually get a black one just to be a little bit on the stealthy side, but this has been working fine. I did also find this right-angled connector for my iPad, just to kind of keep things tucked down nice and neat, not having a cable sticking out on the side itself. Now, I do drop this power cord down into my portholes. It is a little bit longer than what I needed, but I wanted to have a longer cord just in case if I ever had to bypass stuff. It gives me a little extra run to work with. All right, time to dip back into my Odyssey bag and grab out my 15-inch MacBook Pro. This is actually my backup one. This is my workhorse everyday machine. I have a silver mid-2018 that's actually supposed to arrive the day after filming this video. But this has been a really great laptop, super powerful, works great as a video editor with the Vega 20 chip in it. But this is part of the reason why I went USB-C. I wanted to accommodate new hardware from Apple. So throw this up on here, one single cable to connect. and I power on up. All right, so now I have this SanDisk 2 terabyte solid state drive, has incredible read-write times. I decided to go back to external after a couple years of going internal, just because I got a little sick of kind of micromanaging my internal library. Also saves me a little bit of money because while the Apple internal SSDs are ridiculously fast, it is a bit on the expensive side. So has a nice little short throw cable that comes with it. So it makes for a very nice, just quick connect. Place, done, nice and neat. All right, going back into the bag, I have my Denon headphones. Now, this is actually a slightly newer model than the ones I had for a number of years. They discontinued that one. I believe these are the HP 600s. Had the HP 500s previously. Really great headphone, very comfortable, really good sound response. One little fun fact about using a coffin like this is you can use this little side clasp as a headphone holder. Nice and easy. Now, one additional small thing I have found is this Moco stand. It just folds into this nice little triangle. You can actually adjust the height different ways. It has 4 little rubber feet on the bottom and works great to hold my iPad. All right, now for 2019, I think I'm going to go the way of Virtual DJ. I've used Serato for years. Generally was happy with it, but there were some few oddities and whatnot that made me at least look at Virtual DJ and have been pretty impressed by it. Now, one quirk that I've learned, and this may be just for the NS7 III, but if I do not have this powered up when I launch Virtual DJ, not all the functions light up properly. So some of the effect functions, sometimes the hot cues and whatnot, they'll light up odd colors sometimes and whatnot. So just as a quick pro tip, I always turn my NS7 III on first, and then I go ahead and launch Virtual DJ. Now, another tip that I have is I always use my sub covers, whether my old Yamahas or these EV50 covers. I use these as kind of a catch-all. So I'll throw my my top cases in here. I'll throw my SKB front panels into here, wherever is necessary. So when I have to carry this back to my vehicle, it's all kind of tucked nice and neat. Like this. All right, my setup is not complete without my Maui 5 Go's. These battery-powered speakers that I broadcast out via IEM allows me incredible flexibility, be it for cocktail, ceremony, dinner, wherever is needed, even dance fill, I can use these. Now, in typical setup, I might have one Maui 5 already set up for ceremony, the other set for cocktail. If it's for a larger crowd, I might have both Maui 5 Go's set up for ceremony. Quickly grab my IEM, swap it out with my my reception frequency, and bring that in. I can pick these up anywhere I need to. They last for the entire event, from pre-ceremony all the way to the end of a dance segment. Incredible piece of kit here. So speaking of my IEM, here's the lav pack for it. Looks like your standard microphone lav pack. I use Duracell Pro Cells for these. I've tried some other brands and not all of them just lasted as long as I wanted to. Now, well, you know, another short NLFX cable is a 1-footer, 3.5 millimeter over to XLR. Just be aware this actually has to be wired in a slightly different pattern to work properly with these Sennheisers. All right, so now I got sound coming out my mains, coming out of my NS7 III, but I also have sound coming out from my Maui 5 Go's, and they're not in frame because they're over this way. So that's it in a nutshell for my EV50s and my mixer out to the Maui 5 Go's, my UI16, my microphones, my UPS. This is how everything works in conjunction. But now we're going to go over to my cart, get everything assembled for the ceremony, and start working on that. All right, everybody. So you've seen this before. This is my Mover 6, also now known as the AMG 750. This is what I use for every event to roll my equipment in and out, but I also use this to serve as a ceremony platform like 80-90% of the time. It gives me a quick way to go in and out of an area. I can move things around if I have to be powerless at a site, but let's say there's power some many feet away. I can always have this set up, hooked up to power, so it maximizes my battery as much as possible. Then I'll unplug it and then roll it to the ceremony site when necessary. So it gives me a lot of flexibility to go in and out and be quick with it. All right, you've seen this before, but this is kind of my 2019 revision of things. You have my digital mixer box, as I call this, and it houses just a couple things now. In previous versions, I had microphones in here, and I've actually stripped that out in favor of a different modular solution now. But what we have in here is my UI-16. Again, an amazing piece of equipment, probably one of the biggest enablers that I have as a solo DJ. I have a very extensive video on this and blog post. I'll have, of course, those links below. And of course, also with this, I have the IEM 300 from Sennheiser. I have this in both my boxes. And what this allows me, in combination with the UI-16, in combination with my UPS, is ultimate flexibility. I don't need power. I don't need wires. I can place speakers wherever I want to. I can place this unit pretty much anywhere I want to. I can go hundreds of feet if I really, really wanted to. But I normally don't do that because I don't want to have those delays in microphones, playing a part and making the sound a little bit odd or something. So I'll usually keep this as close by as possible, but out of the way as much as possible. In all of this, I also have a Trip Light PDU. This does not have any type of conditioning or anything of that nature within it. But what this allows me is multiple parts on the front and on the back. It's not necessary so much for the ceremonies, but if I ever had to swap this out for reception, this is where I plug in my subs and whatnot. If I have to plug in my phone or anything like that, if I've lost charge or something, this just gives me access to the front. And because I have my UPSs, I can have that all conditioned, so I don't have to worry about this occupying that need for it. Other than that, the other thing that I have in here is, and this is kind of a DIY piece, is I've cut off the standard plug that you would see on a PDU like this, and I've married it up with a PowerCon connector. And pretty much all my power that I have between my microphone boxes, my mixer boxes, are PowerCon connectors. So it just gives me some additional level of security that things won't accidentally slip out, get tripped, and pulled out. And all of this is inside an SKB 6U shallow case. I've had this for a few years. I actually experimented with doing some different cases and actually were not happy with those solutions. So I keep on coming back to this shallow case. But this is my digital mixer box in a nutshell. All right, well, here's what I call my microphone 4-pack. This has 4 Sennheiser G3 microphones. It also has an ASA1 antenna splitter. This also provides power to all 4 of these. So all I need inside of here is just one power brick to power all these up. I have this custom panel, again made by Ben Stowe and NLFX with funky names that I put on it. I got to have a little bit of personality in all this. I also have short XLR cables that were made for this. Also a short, and this is a 2-footer PowerCon cable for my power. These are 16 inches that I made these, so they just perfectly marry up on this. I can go up to full 6 mics on this if I needed to, and people might say, why do I need so many mics? Well, if you have everything from a full video production where I might have to mic up the groom, might have to mic up the bride, of course, the officiant. What if you have a vocalist? What if you have multiple speech readers? And then on top of all that, I have additional inputs. If there's ever any live bands, singers, anything like that, I can plug them in as well. So the combination of 4 microphones up to 6 if I throw my second pack in here, plus the additional channels in here covers virtually any situation that I would run into in a ceremony. All right, another video that I've made, this cable file bag has been awesome. I have 2 bags, one for ceremony, one for reception. I have everything in here from adapters, batteries, all my cables that I've been pulling come from this bag. And it allows me whether I want to carry the bag over to the site or roll in on this cart. Keeps everything nice and tidy. All right, now we've come to power. Here's the APC Pro 1500. There's also the CyberPower model as well. definitely check out my video out there because there's only 2 of these models at this size, at this capacity, that puts out pure sine wave. There's some rack mount units available out there as well, but they're definitely a lot heavier and a lot more expensive. Well, one of the advantages of using a UPS as opposed to one of the DIY battery solutions that you can build out there, or some of these other like the Yeti power options that are out there that they do put out pure sine wave, but they're a little more expensive to start. But this acts as a true UPS, so you can hook this into power. And condition your power, make sure everything is on the up and up. And if there happens to be a power outage, you're completely covered. The other advantage is, of course, you can run this completely independent. I'm about to do another test after a year of use on this, but I did get over an hour 45 using an EV50 at that point, along with my digital mixer, 2 microphones, what my typical general setup would be. I'm going to do another test on this and see how much is depleted. It would naturally have to deplete to some level, but I have not run into a situation yet that I ran out of battery power for pre-ceremony and ceremony. I've had some long ceremonies over the year. So what I'm going to do in this case is power this up, hook in. Again, I have another 16-foot PowerCon cable made up. I can always interchange this with one of these cables if they happen to die. But what this gives me the advantage is not having to worry about tucking in too many cables and whatnot. It gives me a short throw going from here to here. All right, well, here's the Maui 5 Go, battery powered, great sound in such a small setup. It has been, again, a great addition to my offerings, because combining this with the battery power here on this UPS, along with my IEMs, I'm completely independent of any power that's at a ceremony. If there's no power at all, who cares at that point? But in addition, I can place these speakers anywhere, put them in different configurations. I just put the two elements on this. There is a center fill to kind of expand the top a little bit, but there's times where I might put this on a rock formation where I don't need all the height on it, so it allows me to do that. The only disadvantage I've had on this is on windy days, these will knock over. Matter of fact, this is the one that's actually fallen over twice on me. And just slightly on this top, it just separated ever so slightly. Nothing major, definitely purely cosmetic, and you can only see it up close and personal. But if you are in a windy situation, I would recommend putting sandbags. I got some black sandbags for this. Luckily on the event where it was so windy that they were knocking over, I had a videographer stand in for me and threw his sandbags on that. So I was just eternally grateful, and bought my sandbags the day after on that. But this is, again, an incredible piece of kit that has enabled me just complete flexibility for ceremonies, cocktails, dinners, and even dance fill. All right, welcome to my wireless box. So this is an inexpensive case, at least comparatively to what's out there. I'll have the Amazon link below. And this houses my IEM receivers, my lav packs for my mics, and 3 microphones. Now, I actually had 4 IEM receivers at one point, and I used to keep this all inside my cable file bag. The problem is you don't always have a good visual of what's inside the bag. And at one event, I thought I packed them all, and I only packed one. $500 mistake. So another good reason why to have a case like this where everything's sectionalized out, so when you place something in there, it's there, and you're not thinking twice that is it missing or whatnot. You got a good visualization. All right, one thing you might notice, it is not paired up yet. This happens to be paired up with my reception rig. So all I have to do is sync this up. It takes like 3 seconds for it to do it. Green light will indicate when it is. And I get 300-400 feet out of this, depending on clear line of sight and whatnot. I have actually gotten 500 plus feet out of it, but I almost never push it past around that 300-foot mark. Now, as for microphones, I actually have these 2 typically paired up with my ceremony rig. I usually have my right one paired up with my reception rig. I can always interchange what I need. It only takes a couple seconds to sync up. But what I would typically do at a ceremony is, at a minimum, have one mic at the ready. I, of course, have my IEMs and have a lav pack for the officiant ready as well. All right, so we're almost at sound check, but we got to throw our USB sticks in. These are both SanDisk models. One's for playback, one's for record, and it just so happened that this particular SanDisk model has red writing on it, so easily distinguishable what's record, what's playback. Just throw it in here, and it takes about 5 seconds for the unit to read it. All right, now it's time to control things, but just a quick note. I've had to have many takes during this video, as I do with most of my videos, and that battery's been running solid, and it still shows 105 minutes on this, and that's with 4 microphones, an IEM, my mixer, and the router, and that thing will absolutely go strong for pretty much anybody's ceremony, especially if you're not tying your speakers to it. But we have our standard iPad. You can use a tablet, you can use a phone, you can use your laptop. That's the beauty of the UI16. It's browser-based, so you're not tied into a specific kind of app. Now, I have created 2 shortcuts for this. This, again, is browser-based, but I put those shortcuts in Quick Launch itself. And part of the reason I did this is I actually created 2 different networks for my UI16s. I didn't want them to accidentally, cross-pollinate on the same network and have issues. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, don't fret, because this is definitely getting a little bit more advanced talk on IP addresses, subnets, and whatnot. But the basic premise is there's 2 silos, if you want to think about it, where one lives in that one and one lives on the other. But I can control each of them on the same iPad. All I do is connect to those different Wi-Fi points, and life is good. So I'm going to go ahead, launch my ceremony app. And as you can see in here, I've actually minimized the interface to control my essentials for a ceremony. I have 4 channels for my microphones. I also have my playback for audio. I do have my ability to control record and playback right here on this area. And I'm sorry if the focus keeps on coming out of this. Fortunately, the reflection is freaking it out a little bit. When I want to see the tracks I'm going to be playing back, this is off that USB that's on the UI16 itself. And I categorize everything by the couple's name, date, and then the part of the event that's happening. And again, I use my USB sticks and my UI16 as emergency playback. And I can also press that ceremony rig as my reception rig, since they're virtually identical in setup. All I have to do is literally swap out a cable and be done with pressing that into service. So in this case, I already have it set on auto, so just autoplay everything. I can shuffle as well. I will go into that part of the event that I need, and in this case is my pre-ceremony. I just double click either on any file that I want or press play. And that's it. I can be recording at this point as well. It doesn't take any additional major resources on it. You can record and play back as you would want. And this is it. When I'm queuing in, in this case, for this couple I had You're My Best Friend for people coming down. And then when I had the bride coming down to Grateful Dead, and all I do is just fade out my track, I quickly click in, and then I fade back up. Do I wish this had dual track playback? That would be an absolutely nice feature, but I just don't think it's going to be coming. But that quick fade in and out, I've never had anybody complain on a ceremony of any type of gaps. I really do it nice and smooth, in and out. Well, there it is, ceremony, reception, all the pieces that work together, both as a primary and a backup solution, how everything kind of just ties in, makes my life easier as a solo DJ, and to be able to do everything that I do. I hope this video has been informative, and if so, hit that subscribe button, click that thumbs up, ring that notification bell, support my Patreon page if you get the opportunity. If you like videos like this and want to see more, check out my 4 DJs Only playlist.